When you think about the great linebackers since the year 2000, who do you think of? Best guesses for me is that you're going to think of the likes of Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, Derek Brooks, Patrick Willis, Luke Kuechly, and in more current times, maybe even Fred Warner. One guy that continuously gets overlooked everywhere I turn to is London Fletcher. This guy played on 3 different teams, and despite being one of the leaders among tackles year after year after year, this guy often gets very overlooked and overshadowed by his peers. But why exactly is that? What made me want to create this video today is when I saw the Instagram profile of SOG Football. I love his work, but with this specific post, he created a tier list among linebackers, and he had London Fletcher in tier 6. Tier 6. I personally believe Fletcher deserves a lot more than that. It actually made me want to do the research and find out just why this guy is so vastly underrated.
London Fletcher has been a dynamic, most underrated linebacker from the time he walked into this league.
We're gonna go over his career in the NFL, as well as reasons why he may be overlooked, as well as reasons why he may still not be in the Hall of Fame. If this is your sort of content, feel free to give me a like, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1,500 subs. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about London Fletcher's career in the NFL. I mean, you can even start at the very beginning of his career, now that we're on the subject of him being overlooked. Despite being a great player for John Carroll University, Fletcher went undrafted in 1998. He saw 30 other linebackers get selected instead of him.
It still pains me to this day. I sat in my cousin's basement for 2 straight days, sitting there writing down all the linebackers that are being drafted. And I've wrote down 32 names, and none of them were mine.
He actually goes on to say that the Rams initially called them and they were going to use their 7th round pick on him, only to hear another linebacker's name being called. One simple answer could be that he was at a smaller school and he was also undersized for the middle linebacker position. The Rams gave him a shot in 1998 and he played in every game and even started in one game also. He won the starting job by 1999. This is the year that the Rams won the Super Bowl, in which he played a key role in this win, as he had 11 tackles against Tennessee. And despite having a new coach in 2000, Fletcher remained the starter and had even more personal success during this time. All told, in the year 2000, he accumulated almost 200 total tackles, another 5.5 sacks, and 4 interceptions. Stats that should bring you into the Pro Bowl, but you know what? More on that later. He posted similar numbers in 2001, and that was the end of his time with the Rams. This is now where the Bills era began, as the Bills signed him for 5 years, and he had very solid numbers every season he was with Buffalo. A big reason why Fletcher doesn't get talked around this time is that the Bills themselves weren't very good. By the end of his contract, Fletcher did want to stay in Buffalo, and Buffalo wanted to keep Fletcher, but the Bills couldn't match what he most likely would have gotten in the open market. He went on to sign with the Washington Redskins. He signed for 5 years for another $25 million, almost doubling the original contract he had with the Bills. From 2009 to 2012, he was a Pro Bowler every single year, putting his best work in the mid-30s of all times. In 2012 specifically, he was ranked 87th in the NFL Top 100, so he was getting some recognition from his peers. The 38-year-old did call it quits after the 2013 season. Final stats all told, and by the way, I am getting this from ProFootballReference.com, he finished with 1,384 solo tackles, which is to this day ranked 2nd all time, 1,805 combined tackles, 39 sacks, 23 interceptions, 19 forced fumbles, 12 fumble recoveries, 4 Pro Bowls, and 2 second-team All-Pros. He never missed a game in his 16-year career. When I tell you how difficult that is to never miss a game, especially in a brutal position like linebacker, that speaks volumes and the sheer ability of this guy. They always say the best ability is availability. If you look at his career, he was great against the run, the pass, as well as being a fantastic leader, never controversial, but still to this day not in the Hall of Fame, despite being eligible since 2019. So now that we've briefly gone over his entire career, we want to now ask the question, why is the disrespect there? Many people will argue that Ray Lewis had very similar stats. So I really wanted to compare the two to see what exactly could be the difference in their game. In terms of solo tackles, Ray Lewis does have the advantage. He has 1,568 versus London Fletcher's 1,384. Lewis has 41.5 sacks to Fletcher's 39. When you break it down, they have about the same per season, 31 interceptions versus Fletcher's 23. Now, let's talk Super Bowls. Ray Lewis does have 2, and he played a big role in both of them. Whereas London Fletcher, yes, he had a great game back in 1999, but were they really remembered more for their defense or the greatest show on turf? The other thing you want to take note of is despite the similar statistics, Ray Lewis played in 28 less games. That's almost 2 full seasons worth of games that he played less than London Fletcher, yet he was still able to have the success that he did, comparable stats, and so on and so forth. So in kind of a strange and twisted way, the fact that he played in every single game almost affects Fletcher negatively in this regard, because once you look at the averages and break down the numbers, Ray Lewis is better in terms of averages, but I will say it is kind of splitting hairs. At the end of the day, they are 2 great defenders. With all this being said, Ray Lewis also has 12 Pro Bowls compared to London Fletcher's 4. Okay, fair enough, that's Ray Lewis. I also wanted to take a look at another linebacker during this time, and that's Brian Urlacher. Urlacher had about 1,046 solo tackles, 41.5 sacks, 22 interceptions, and despite not winning a Super Bowl, he can at least say that he made it to at least 1 Super Bowl. And guess who's playing quarterback on offense for this team? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Sexy Rexy. Additionally, he doubles the Pro Bowl nods that Fletcher has had. So with that being said, comparing to his peers, he does have the argument. Maybe he doesn't match them hit for hit, but he does have comparable stats. So what else could it possibly be? Could it be the low Pro Bowls? Despite making the Pro Bowl 4 times, I feel like London Fletcher was snubbed if you looked at the statistics. Specifically, I do feel like he was snubbed in 2000, in 2002, in 2004, 2005, and 2006. Let me specifically talk about 2005 through 2006. Winning is a huge factor in this regard. In 2005, when Al Wilson made the Pro Bowl over London Fletcher here, and if you look at these numbers, this is blasphemy. How does he make it over Fletcher this year?
How, Sway?
Oh, that's why. I think you kind of get where I'm going with this. With these 5 snubs that I believe he deserved, saying London Fletcher was a 9-time Pro Bowler versus 4-time, I do feel like that's a huge difference. And I touched on this briefly just now. His teams outside of his stint with the Rams were, for the most part, mediocre at best. Tell me one thing you remember about the Bills or Washington from the mid-2000s to the early 2010s. Tell me one thing outside of an RG3 ACL tear.
Don't worry, I'll wait.
Was it all on him? Absolutely not. But again, this is one of the reasons that people forget about London Fletcher. He was just on not even so bad teams that you remember them. He was just on very mediocre teams that you will forget. On top of it all, I do personally believe longevity should play a factor in being one of the greats. But in the case of most casuals and maybe even some hardcore fans, longevity doesn't mean that much in the grand scheme of things. Just put it as an example, he was never the best linebacker at any point in his career. There was always somebody better. During his early years, he was overlooked by the likes of Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, Derrick Brooks. In his later years, he was overlooked by Patrick Willis, DeMarcus Ware, and Terrell Suggs. And guess what? Most of these guys were on great teams. Fletcher, not so much. The best comparable person that I could put London Fletcher with is Frank Gore. And that's not a knock on Fletcher, because I don't think Frank Gore is a bad running back by any means. I mean, there's no way you can be a bad running back and be 3rd place all time in rushing. You know what I mean? Despite his longevity at a position where you're done by 30 normally, let's be real. If you played defense and you were like, damn, I'm about to play LaDainian Tomlinson, how do we game plan around this guy? Be honest, were you having the same reaction to playing Frank Gore? Like, oh my god, we're about to play Frank Gore. That doesn't mean Frank Gore was a bad running back. He was able to keep jobs because he was a solid running back. He was a workhorse, but he was never dominant. And I do believe on the defensive side, the very comparable person to Gore has to be London Fletcher. The stats are there, the longevity is there, and quite frankly, the disrespect is abundantly there. The only other thing that could save London Fletcher from obscurity is to one day make the Hall of Fame. Now, to this day, he has been eligible since 2019, and I do feel like unless you were the best of the best during your time, odds are that you will have to wait a few years to be inducted. And it sucks. I don't think he'll be in there soon, despite me believing that he should be in the Hall of Fame. And this final reason why London Fletcher might get disrespected. His best time came with the Washington Redskins. And guess what? Everybody hates Dan Snyder. So you know what? Maybe this could all be summed up by just saying everything that has to do with Washington because of Daniel Snyder. So unfortunately, London Fletcher falls under that umbrella. It could be that because I lived in the DMV, I actually got to watch the man play on a weekly basis, so maybe I have some bias. But what do you guys think? Does London Fletcher get overlooked, or is he rightly forgotten about in most cases? If this is the type of content that you like, feel free to give me a like and a subscribe. We're on the road to 1,500 subs. That's gonna do it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been Triple DS. Hope to see you guys soon, and until next time, boy.